just want it to stop, and it won't.
Relentless rain. Deadly surge.
We're in trouble.
The 2023 hurricane season is here, with changes in weather patterns.
Could be the development of El Nino.
Changes in wind patterns.
What is your risk today? And then how would that change over the next 30 years?
And lessons learned from Hurricane Ian.
Don't put a lot of faith in those long-range weather forecasts.
From the perspective of a veteran storm chaser, to a hurricane hunter who flies into the eye of the storm. And our veteran team of hurricane experts.
That hurricane might be stronger than what the forecast indicates.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. We are taking a special in-depth look at the 2023 Atlantic hurricane season, which starts today. And this morning, there is a disturbance the National Hurricane Center is watching in the Gulf of Mexico. Right now, it only has a 20% chance of developing into a tropical storm, but it bears watching because no matter what, is expected to bring heavy rain and winds to the Florida Panhandle. We're going to start our look at this hurricane season with a look at last year's biggest and most destructive storm, Hurricane Ian. We now know it was one of the costliest hurricanes in U.S. history and left portions of Florida's southern Gulf Coast in ruins.
But still a lot of guidance here, where the American model was more on the western side, the European model more on the eastern side. So we're still at odds with the computer model forecast.
And already that push of water inland is occurring, and that's going to be that dangerous storm surge, which could be anywhere between 8 to 12 feet.
Extreme wind warning has been issued. These are very rare.
We're going to go back to home and not be able to recognize it.
It's the sound of the river running through the bottom floor.
And it was the massive storm surge that caused the most devastation and destruction.
In Fort Myers, in that area where the storm surge has been catastrophic.
The water rose as high as 15 feet in Fort Myers Beach, destroying 900 structures and damaging thousands more.
It's completely gone. I mean, it's like it's wiped off the face of the earth.
This is what Sanibel Island looked like before Ian. This is what it looked like after. You can really see the damaged causeway.
Are you guys okay?
In Naples, the fire department walked through waist-high water to rescue people.
Trees down, motorcycles down, cars crashed into each other.
The numbers are staggering. According to the National Hurricane Center, Ian was responsible for over 150 deaths and more than $112 billion in damage, making it the third costliest hurricane in U.S. history. Only recently did we learn Ian was briefly a monster Category 5 storm with 160-mile-per-hour winds before making landfall as a Category 4.
You get all this stuff ready, but you really just don't think it's going to happen to you.
So what are the lessons we learned from Hurricane Ian? We assembled a team of hurricane experts to get their take.
I'd say the lessons we learned from Hurricane Ian are to listen to all of the warnings whenever they're issued.
Don't put a lot of faith in those long-range weather forecasts.
There could be changes in that forecast, but there is uncertainty, especially when it comes to the track of hurricanes.
Even outside of the cone, it's very important to heed the watches and warnings and be prepared for the impacts.
The National Hurricane Center did an incredible job with Ian's cone of uncertainty, yet all public eyes were on a Tampa landfall 24 hours out. My friends in Southwest Florida would tell you today that they were surprised by the sudden evacuation orders that came for them on too short notice to act and leave.
And forecasters say this hurricane season will be average to slightly below average. In an average year, there are 14 named storms. Colorado State University is forecasting 13, while NOAA says 12 to 17. Colorado State is forecasting slightly fewer than average hurricanes and major hurricanes, while NOAA is pretty much average. The reason for this? The end of La Nina and the start of El Nino. Meteorologist John Gum explains what this all means.
Well, as we turn the page to hurricane season 2023, one of the big players could be the development of El Nino. And how strong it gets will be a determining factor, perhaps, in how the hurricane season goes. The past few years, it's been La Nina, the opposite of El Nino, which is an increase in those east to west blowing trade winds that basically shove warm water toward Asia and allow cooler water to upwell from the bottom of the ocean toward the surface off the coast of South America. That in turn flips the weather pattern around, but it results in an increase in the hurricane activity for the Caribbean and parts of the western Atlantic, while we see a decrease in the eastern Pacific. El Nino, it is just the opposite. Those trade winds, they are not as strong. So we get warm water forming off the coast of South America. And the opposite is true as far as the impacts on the hurricane season, with a decrease in hurricane activity for the Caribbean and parts of the western Atlantic, a decrease typically in hits for Florida and the eastern seaboard, while parts of the eastern Pacific see an increase. And as we look back at history, the El Nino years here are in red. Overall storm activity, it is lower in El Nino years. The number of hurricanes also lower, and the number of major hurricanes also lower compared to average and compared to the neutral years and the La Nina years as well. So let's hope El Nino forms and decreases hurricanes for us this season.
You can find this lesson along with many other 3D weather explanations on the National Weather Desk's YouTube page. And while you're there, you can find plenty of other videos that will help you better understand the weather. Just search the National Weather Desk. Air Force hurricane hunters fly into the eye of the storm to help best forecast the power and path. We spoke with Air Force Flights meteorologist Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Rickard about his dangerous mission.
Means we're flying right through thunderstorms, we're intersecting it, so the ride can be a lot more turbulent, a lot more crazy. We can get struck by lightning, we can experience extreme turbulence as we're going through Category 5 eye walls of hurricanes. We start turning and you don't want to get caught on an updraft on one of your sides of your airplane, because then you're just going to get flipped.
Got a good sign.
If it starts getting really turbulent, we basically know where we're going. We're going to the eye, and we get into the eye. Then we start maneuvering to find that center fix of the storm. There are some that are definitely gnarly situations. Shall I say, there's been a couple times where I've been on flights where we've kind of got caught in an eye wall where we couldn't get out of it. You don't want too much ground speed. You don't want too much speed. You don't want to be too slow, because then you can stall. Hurricane Irma, I flew on that storm as it basically peaked and flew over, I think it was St. Martin, and saw, actually, we could tell from the air at 10,000 feet, like the entire runway was the beach. Like the water and the beach was totally over that runway. And wow, like Cat 5 just wiped this island out. So just being a part of some of those missions, knowing that it's making a significant impact for the people on the ground and the Hurricane Center to issue their warnings, definitely very impacting to us in the airplane.
And we have much more from the hurricane hunters on our podcast, Off the Radar. In the episode, you learn what led to the group's formation and how things have changed in the 80 years since. You can find Off the Radar wherever you get your podcasts. And coming up on the National Weather Desk.
I mean, we're in trouble. We're in bad trouble,
I
Stephen.
get that. I mean, but right here, we can climb up the side of this house. You can't drive in that without losing tires and getting stuck.
Can you not get up into the house?
We might can.
We need to look now.
The National Weather Desk storm chaser Britt Adair talks about driving into hurricanes and the one storm that really scared him. Plus, people living inland may soon be experiencing hurricane-strength winds. A look at why those powerful winds could soon be extending next. But first, a look at the names selected for the 2023 hurricane season.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti. Look at the Northeast. The heat and humidity, it's building out there today with temps surging into the 80s and 90s. It's going to be a little muggy out there as well during the course of the afternoon. Now, here we are during the morning hours today. Nothing but sunshine. A few fair weather clouds may develop. Best chance for a shower or thunderstorm will be in northern New England. Now, showers and thunderstorms will become area-wide in the Northeast on Friday. That's our best chance for getting the gardens and lawns some water. And it looks like the pattern gets a little unsettled this weekend.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region up and down the 95 corridor, starting off in generally the 60s for Thursday morning. By lunchtime and beyond, look at those 80s popping up. Maybe a little bit cooler south into portions of Virginia. Could have some extra cloud cover as the system lingers off the coast. Otherwise, real nice looking day for Thursday, and I think it may even warm up further as we head into Friday as fair weather high pressure becomes our main weather maker. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast. Highs for the day. It looks like Tupelo about 86 degrees, 84 in Atlanta. Macon about 85 degrees, a high of 88 in Tampa. Raleigh slightly cooler at 79 degrees. Looking at partly cloudy skies, some sunshine around parts of the Tennessee Valley, but we have this area of low pressure watching over the Gulf, spinning up the atmosphere. That will bring some decent rainfall for parts of Florida, but there will be plenty of sunshine through the day on Thursday into the evening, mainly dry conditions across parts of Georgia.
Watching the National Weather Desk.
Someone who knows the power of a hurricane better than most is storm chaser Brett Adair. He drives into the storm when most people are driving away from it. He gives us his own perspective on how more powerful storms are impacting him.
You've got to be prepared a whole lot more now. It's been a case where we've had really strong storms, especially in the Gulf and the southeast region, that have, been hammered time and time again. So being prepared and getting there early is very important. Storm chasing in general has changed due to technology. It's a lot more widespread now. You've got cellular service pretty much virtually anywhere, and that's very important when it comes to, being able to communicate and relay information such as video. And that's going to be one of the things that continues to grow and expand with time. Watching over the last 5 or 6 years, they just continue to intensify. There's not a weakening trend. It's an intensification trend as they push toward the coast, and that's very alarming for us. Hurricane Ian seemed almost like the never-ending storm. It came into the west coast of Florida and basically stalled there for a little bit just offshore. Utter devastation down in Fort Myers Beach on Sanibel Island that the hurricane left in its wake.
Here comes the surge. We're gonna have to go back.
Hurricane Michael was crazy for us.
We're in trouble. We're in bad trouble.
I get that.
Michael was a reality check because it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, you better have multiple plans of action when, proverbial issues occur.
I'm not really sure how we're going to do it.
And luckily, we were able to find shelter, and that saved our lives.
These condos are coming apart.
You see something different on every chase, but now it's also a situation to where you are serving the people. Oh my goodness, are my friends okay if they stayed? Is my home okay? Sometimes we give that first line of communication. We've got a passion to be there. You name it, we've done it.
A lot of flooding.
We plan, we prepare, we have teams, we have people that are also on the ground just outside of the disaster zone so that if we need some type of assistance, we've got that. We have internet communications, satellite communications that allow us to get these video transmissions back. What you see through the human eye is the most important thing in one of these weather situations. You have to be on guard for anything. Be prepared for everything. And last but not least, when it's time to evacuate, take those orders seriously and get out.
In the near future, you may not need to go to the coast to experience hurricane-force winds. As storms get stronger, millions of people living inland could be at risk. Meteorologist Emily Gracie looks at the impact of this changing landscape.
When it comes to hurricane impacts, we often hear the advice, run from water, hide from wind. According to a recent study, a lot more people are going to be hiding. A report titled Worsening Winds says 13.4 million properties in the United States will be newly exposed to hurricane winds, many of them well away from the coastline. The reason? Hurricanes are getting stronger.
So what we're actually seeing is in 30 years, this kind of almost a belt that moves inland of homes that would be exposed to tropical storm speeds or higher that never would today.
Matthew Ebby is the founder and CEO of First Street Foundation, the nonprofit that released the report. They used a new kind of climate modeling tool to produce these projected wind impacts.
Hurricanes are so sparse in the historic record that goes back to 1900 that you don't actually get enough observations to understand how likely landfall is to happen. There's just not enough of the higher end, the major hurricanes, to understand the likelihood that you might be impacted by one of these.
So instead of looking at limited historical data, they've created synthetic hurricanes using current atmospheric conditions to model what could happen.
So what is your risk today? And then how would that change over the next 30 years?
The other major change to expect in the next few decades is in hurricane tracks.
And so because they're moving what's called poleward, they're changing the impacts in the areas of places like Florida where the really, really high risk, high value real estate in Miami-Dade County is decreasing slightly and moving into places like Jacksonville, which is also a big city and very high value real estate.
And while the focus of the study was wind, it is important to remember the deadliest hurricane hazard, water.
What we're trying to get to and what we'll be focusing on next year is these compound events. So coupling our models and then saying, what is the likelihood of these things together and what does that impact to your structure?
Ebby says the answer lies in infrastructure.
How are we building in these high-risk places? You really need to think long-term, and that means not just today's risk, but how is that going to change in the future?
There are now new eyes in the sky to help improve hurricane forecasting.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
In May, NASA launched small satellites which will observe tropical cyclones from low Earth orbit. Because they are closer to Earth, the satellites will be able to make hourly observations, greatly enhancing the data scientists use to understand the storms. The National Hurricane Center will certainly be using that data. And this year they have a new director. We spoke with Mike Brennan about his new job and his mission at the Hurricane Center.
We're working towards, offering products in multiple languages. A huge part of our area of responsibility is primarily Spanish speaking, especially internationally, but there's a huge Spanish speaking population in the United States as well. We have some limited products right now that are available in Spanish, but we're looking to expand that in the future and potentially expand it to other languages as well so that people can at least get the information and consume it in the language that's their primary language. There's huge generational differences in how people get information, from television to social media to your phone to the computer. Again, we have to be able to be in all those spaces and make sure that our voice is out there. We need to reach underserved communities, historically underserved communities, and make sure that we're going and doing outreach and education in that area, in those areas in the United States and also internationally. Even if it's an otherwise quiet season, there can still be impactful storms. There can still be major hurricane landfalls. Risk is there, and people have to prepare for the season regardless.
And we asked our team of hurricane experts for their thoughts as hurricane season arrives. Here are some of their responses.
You need to have a good,
credible source of information during a major hurricane and stick with it and stay with them for the latest updates.
There are going to be day-to-day changes. Don't just lock in on the forecast that makes you feel good, and don't lock in on the first one you heard. Always expect change.
We do this job because we want to keep you all safe. So just please listen to the forecast and always be prepared. That's the best thing you can do when it comes to hurricane season.
And now is the time to start preparing for a possible hurricane. Here are some possible solutions here.
Good Thursday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. We do have some scattered showers and storms across the plains. Enjoy that, but the dry weather continues across the Great Lakes and the Ohio Valley. We are on the onset of a drought here as it continues to stay dry across the Ohio Valley. Still scattered showers and storms out over the plains, though, for your Friday. And pretty much the same story on Saturday, with temperatures heating up across a lot of the Ohio Valley into the mid-90s in spots.
Good morning, I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're starting off a little warm, a little humid this morning, all the way back up into Oklahoma City. Temperatures there into the 70s. We'll be keeping our eye on this little bit of a dry line out toward the west. That'll push out toward the east, creating some big storms up across the Texas Panhandle. Meanwhile, for the first day of meteorological summer, things are going to be heating up all the way from Texas into Louisiana. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi, everybody. First day of meteorological summer. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell, and the West Coast seeing a lot of sunshine back all the way through the Intermountain West and into the Pacific Northwest as well. Up into the upper 60s today in the Emerald City as we start warming up for early June versus 92 in Vegas and Phoenix. Thunderstorms breaking out over Salt Lake City this afternoon with the stormy weather all the way back into Denver as well. And that's the scene from here.
Watching the National Weather Desk.
The National Hurricane Center is making changes this year in the way it will deliver the daily tropical storm and hurricane forecast. Meteorologist Jennifer Collins looks at what you can expect to see.
The National Hurricane Center will expand its tropical weather outlook, introducing a 7-day outlook this hurricane season. Since 2015, the NHC has been issuing both 2-day and 5-day tropical weather outlooks during the season. Now, these outlooks are different from the official forecast cones. Tropical outlooks are used to identify areas that are favorable for potential tropical cyclone formation in the Atlantic, Caribbean, and Gulf of Mexico. Now, the time period covered by the outlook will extend from 5 days to 7 days and will now release both a 7-day and 2-day formation probability. Tropical weather outlooks are issued 4 times a day regularly starting on May 15th through November 30th. The outlooks are presented with a color-coded scale. Yellow indicating a low chance of development, orange a medium chance, and red a high chance of development.
And we'd love to share your weather content on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk, Nat WS Desk, or the National Weather Desk. We'll be back. Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at how the weather impacts the ways you use social media. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Thursday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.